I hadn't heard from Ethan in 16 years. No calls, no signs, no explanation. He just disappeared, vanished without a trace in 2008. But yesterday, something impossible happened. I got a text from his number. It wasn't a scam. It wasn't a mistake. It said, "Meet me where it all started." My hands were shaking. My heart stopped. This story, is not about ghosts. It's about something much worse. The truth. Before I show you what happened next, tell me in the comments, if someone you lost years ago suddenly texted you, would you reply? My name is David Carter, and this is the story that changed everything I thought I knew about reality, friendship, and the price we pay for the people we love. Ethan Mitchell and I met during our freshman year at Northwestern University in 2005. He was this brilliant, charismatic guy who could solve complex physics problems while making everyone laugh. I was studying journalism. He was in advanced theoretical physics. We became roommates, then best friends. Ethan had this infectious energy that drew people to him. Everyone wanted to be around him, especially the girls. But there was one girl who caught both our attention. Jessica Reynolds, a pre-med student with the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. Ethan saw how I looked at Jessica, and being the friend he was, he stepped back. "She's all yours, Dave," he said with that trademark grin. "Just don't screw it up." Jessica and I started dating in our sophomore year. Ethan was our biggest supporter, always planning group activities, making sure we had time together. He was like the brother I never had. But looking back now, I realized there were signs. Strange phone calls that would make Ethan's face go pale. Mysterious meetings he couldn't talk about. The way he'd sometimes stare at nothing, like he was carrying the weight of the world. By senior year, 2008, Ethan's behavior had become increasingly erratic. He'd gotten an exclusive internship at Fermilab working on something he described as classified government research. He couldn't tell us details, but I could see it was eating at him. Ethan started having nightmares. I'd wake up to him screaming in his sleep, muttering about temporal fractures and cascade effects. When I'd ask him about it in the morning, he'd just shake his head and say, "Some knowledge is too dangerous, Dave." Jessica noticed it too. "Your friend is carrying some heavy secrets," she told me one night. "I'm worried about him." The last normal conversation I had with Ethan was on October 10th, 2008. We were sitting in our dorm room, and he suddenly grabbed my shoulders. "Dave, if something happens to me, promise me you'll take care of Jessica. Promise me you'll be happy, even if I'm not around to see it." I laughed it off. "Dude, you're being dramatic. Nothing's going to happen." But his eyes were deadly serious. "Promise me." "I promise, but good." That's all I needed to hear. October 15th, 2008. I woke up to find Ethan's bed empty. Not unusual, he sometimes pulled all-nighters at the lab. But by noon, when he hadn't returned, I started to worry. I called his lab supervisor, Dr. Harrison Wells. "Ethan didn't show up today," he said, and I could hear the concern in his voice. "That's not like him. He's been working on something significant." By evening, Jessica and I were frantic. We called campus security, then the police. Ethan's car was still in the parking lot. His wallet, keys, everything was in the room. Only his phone was missing. The search lasted weeks. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers combing every inch of the campus and surrounding areas. Nothing. It was as if Ethan Mitchell had simply ceased to exist. His parents flew in from Oregon. I'll never forget the look in his mother's eyes. Pure devastation. He was going to change the world, she whispered to me at the police station. My brilliant boy was going to change everything. The investigation went cold after a month. The detective, a gruff man named Rodriguez, told us bluntly, "College kids disappear sometimes. Usually, they turn up eventually. Sometimes they don't want to be found." But I knew Ethan. He would never just leave. Not without saying goodbye. Not without an explanation. Jessica and I grieved together. Our shared loss bonded us in ways I never expected. She helped me through the nightmares, the guilt, the constant wondering. I was there for her through the tears, the anger, the desperate hope that Ethan would walk through the door. We graduated in 2009, got married in 2011. A small ceremony because it felt wrong to celebrate too much without Ethan there. Jessica became Dr. Jessica Carter, a brilliant emergency room physician. I became an investigative journalist. Partly because Ethan's disappearance taught me how many questions in the world go unanswered. But we had children, twin girls, Sarah and Maya, born in 2014, beautiful, brilliant kids who filled the hole in our hearts that Ethan had left behind. But Ethan was always there, like a ghost in our marriage. Jessica would sometimes catch me staring at his old photos. I'd find her crying on October 15th every year, the anniversary of his disappearance. We moved to Seattle in 2016 for Jessica's residency. New city, new life, new chances to forget. But you never really forget your best friend. I kept investigating missing persons cases in my spare time, became obsessed with cold cases. Jessica worried I was trying to solve Ethan's disappearance by proxy. And maybe she was right. Yesterday, October 23rd, 2024, I was in my home office, working on a story about government research cover-ups, when my phone buzzed. The number made my blood freeze. I'd memorized it 16 years ago. Ethan's number. Meet me where it all started. Tonight, 11 p.m. Come alone. The truth is worse than you think. I stared at the screen until my eyes watered. This wasn't possible. I'd called that number thousands of times in 2008. Always went straight to a disconnected message. My first thought was cruel prank. Some sicko who'd researched Ethan's case and wanted to torture me. But how would they get his exact number? And why now? After 16 years, I called the number back. It rang once, twice. Then, the number you have dialed is not in service. But the text was there, real, time-stamped. From Ethan's number I tried to focus on work, but my hands were shaking. I kept reading the message over and over. The truth is worse than you think. What truth? I spent the afternoon doing what I do best, investigating. I pulled up everything I could find about Ethan's disappearance, his work at Fermilab, Dr. Harrison, Wells. What I found chilled me to the bone. Dr. Wells had died in a car accident 6 months after Ethan disappeared. The official report said he fell asleep at the wheel, but the accident happened at 2 p.m. on a straight highway. Wells had no history of sleep disorders. The research project Ethan was working on, all records were classified. When I tried to the documents, I got a response that the materials were critical to national security and would remain sealed for 75 years. I found 3 other students who had worked on the project. One died in a hiking accident in 2009. Another committed suicide in 2010. The third, a woman named Dr. Lisa Chen, was still alive but had completely changed careers from quantum physics to elementary school teaching. I tracked down Dr. Chen's number and called her. When I mentioned Ethan's name, there was a long silence. "I can't talk about this," she whispered. "They told us never to talk about this." "Who told you?" "I have to go." Click, but she called back 5 minutes later. "Meet me at Pike Place Market. Tomorrow at noon? Come alone." And David, if someone really contacted you claiming to be Ethan, don't trust them. What we were working on, it's dangerous. More dangerous than you can imagine. Should I tell Jessica? She was at the hospital, saving lives, trying to move forward. Our girls were 10 now, happy and healthy. They barely knew about Uncle Ethan, just that he was Daddy's best friend who went away before they were born. I decided to wait. If this was a hoax, I didn't want to put Jessica through the emotional torture. If it was real, I needed to understand what I was dealing with first. I made up an excuse about working late on a story and left the house at 10 p.m. Jessica kissed me goodbye, told me to be safe. Our normal, comfortable life felt fragile suddenly, like it could shatter with one wrong move. The drive to Northwestern took 2 hours. I hadn't been back to the campus since graduation. Seeing those familiar buildings brought back a flood of memories: late night study sessions, football games, the first time I kissed Jessica under the oak tree by the library, and Ethan, always Ethan, making everything more fun, more meaningful, more alive. The campus looked different at night. Older, more security cameras, new buildings where familiar ones used to be. But the heart of it was the same. I walked to our old dorm, Willard Hall. The bench outside where we used to sit and plan our futures was still there, weathered but intact. 11 p.m. came and went. I waited, feeling foolish. Of course it was a hoax. Of course Ethan wasn't coming. He was gone. Had been gone for 16 years, and I was a middle-aged man sitting alone on a college campus, chasing ghosts. Then I heard footsteps on the pathway behind me. "Hello, Dave." I turned around and my world tilted on its axis. It was Ethan, not aged, not changed. Exactly as he looked the last time I saw him in October 2008. Same clothes, same haircut, same 22-year-old face. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. "Not quite," he said with that familiar grin. "But close." "This isn't real," I said, standing up on shaky legs. "You're dead, or in witness protection, or this is some kind of elaborate prank." Ethan stepped closer. He looked exactly the same, but there was something different in his eyes. Older, sadder, like he'd seen things that aged his soul, even if his body remained frozen in time. "I know how this looks, Dave. I know it's impossible to understand. Try me." He gestured to the bench. "Sit down, please. This is going to take a while." We sat where we used to sit as college kids, but everything was different now. I was 38, married, a father. He was still 22, still wearing the Northwestern hoodie I remembered. "Where have you been?" The question came out as barely a whisper. "That's complicated. Time doesn't work the way we think it does. Dave, linear progression, cause and effect. Past and future, it's all much more fluid than people realize. You're talking about time travel, not travel, displacement. I've been displaced from the normal flow of time for 16 years. For me, it's been different. Difficult to explain in terms you'd understand." I stared at him. "This is insane. I know, but it's true. The project at Fermilab," Ethan continued, "wasn't just theoretical research. We were working on practical applications of temporal manipulation, creating pockets outside normal space-time where different physical laws could apply. That's science fiction. So was splitting the atom. Once, so was quantum entanglement. The government has been working on this for decades. Dave, what we achieved in 2008 was a breakthrough and a catastrophe." He pulled out a device I'd never seen before. It looked like a cross between a watch and a smartphone, with strange symbols glowing on its surface. This is a temporal anchor. It keeps me tethered to a specific point in space-time while allowing me to move through what you'd call the gaps between moments. Why are you telling me this? Ethan's expression darkened, because something's gone wrong. The temporal barriers are breaking down, reality is starting to fracture, and if I don't fix it, everyone I care about, everyone you care about is going to cease to exist. I felt like I was losing my mind. Ethan, listen to yourself. This sounds like the plot of a bad science fiction movie. I know how it sounds. But Dave, have you noticed anything strange lately? Things that don't quite add up? Memories that feel different than they should? Actually, I had small things. Photos that looked different than I remembered. Streets in our neighborhood that seemed to lead places they never led before. Jessica mentioning conversations we'd had that I couldn't recall. The fractures are starting small, Ethan said, seeing the recognition in my eyes. But they're spreading. Soon, reality itself will collapse. Into chaos? Why did you disappear? I asked. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Ethan's face crumpled with guilt because I screwed up. During our final experiment, I made a mistake. A miscalculation that created a cascade effect through the temporal field. Dr. Wells tried to shut it down, but it was too late. What happened? To Wells. He was caught in the temporal backlash. It, scrambled his perception of cause and effect. He started seeing possible futures, alternate timelines. It drove him insane. The car accident wasn't an accident, Dave. He couldn't tell the difference between what was real and what was a probability echo. My stomach turned. And the other students. Same thing. The temporal exposure affected their minds. They couldn't process linear time anymore. Sarah Martinez started experiencing her death over and over again until she made it real just to make it stop. Jim Reeves saw infinite versions of himself, making infinite different choices. The weight of all those possibilities crushed his sanity. But you're fine. I'm not fine, Ethan said sharply. I'm just protected. The device keeps me stable, but at a cost. I can't age, can't change, can't form lasting connections with anyone because I exist outside their time stream. That's why you haven't aged. That's why I'm cursed to watch everyone I love grow old and die while I remain frozen at 22. The temporal fractures are accelerating. Ethan continued, I've been trying to repair them from inside the displaced time stream, but I can't do it alone anymore. I need help from someone in normal time, someone who understands both the science and the personal stakes. What kind of help? There's a device at the old Fermilab facility, a temporal stabilizer that was built as a fit, but it requires two operators, one from normal time, one from displaced time, working in perfect synchronization. And you want me to be the normal time operator? You're the only person I trust completely. And Dave, Jessica and your girls are in danger. The fractures are centering around people and places that have strong emotional connections to the original displacement event. Our friendship, your relationship with Jessica, your children, they're all nexus points for the temporal breakdown. I felt sick. How much danger? Without intervention, they'll start experiencing temporal echoes. Within days, seeing multiple versions of events, multiple versions of themselves, then the echoes will start contradicting each other, creating paradoxes. Eventually, their timeline will collapse and they'll cease to exist in any timeline. The world spun. Around me, you're saying my family might just stop existing. I'm saying I've watched it happen to other nexus points over the past 16 years. Entire families, entire communities, erased from reality because their timelines became too unstable to maintain coherence. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Because I hoped I could fix it without involving you. Because I knew what asking for your help would mean. What would it mean? I asked, though part of me already knew. Ethan looked at me with infinite sadness. Operating the stabilizer from normal time requires significant temporal exposure, the kind that affected Wells and the others. It would drive me insane. Probably, the human mind isn't designed to process nonlinear time. Most people who are exposed to it either go mad or die. Most people, some adapt, some find ways to compartmentalize the experience. But there's no way to know until it happens. I stood up and paced in front of the bench. My best friend was asking me to risk my sanity to save my family and the world. Apparently, there has to be another way. I've spent 16 years looking for another way, Dave. This is it. What about Dr. Chen? She survived the project. Lisa was only peripherally exposed. She got lucky. But even she's been struggling with temporal echoes for years. That's why she changed careers, moved across the country, tries to live the most linear, predictable life possible. I thought about my daughters, sleeping safely in their beds in Seattle. About Jessica, probably wondering where I was. About the life we'd built together. If I do this and it works, what happens to you? The device should restore normal temporal flow. I'll be reintegrated into linear time, but at my proper age. I'll become 38 instantly, 16 years of aging happening in seconds. And if it doesn't work, then we both die, and the temporal fractures consume everything. I agreed to help. What choice did I have? We drove through the night to Fermilab in Ethan's car, a vehicle that he claimed existed in temporal suspension, which explained how it was still running after 16 years. During the drive, Ethan told me more about his displacement experience, how he'd learned to navigate the spaces between moments, how he'd watched me and Jessica fall in love, get married, have children, all while being unable to participate in any of it. "I was at your wedding," he said quietly, standing in the back, outside normal time. "I wanted so badly to be your best man, but I couldn't risk the temporal disruption. You've been watching us this whole time. Not watching, existing parallel to you. Sometimes our timelines would brush against each other. That's why Jessica sometimes felt like someone was watching her. Why your daughters would talk to imaginary friends who sounded suspiciously like me. The thought was both comforting and terrifying. Why now? Why is everything falling apart now? Because the original displacement event is reaching critical resonance. 16 years is a significant temporal cycle. It's when the echoes from the original fracture start reinforcing each other instead of canceling out. We reached Fermilab at 3 a.m. The facility looked abandoned, but Ethan led me through security systems that recognized his temporal signature. Deep underground, in a chamber I'd never seen during my college visits, was the device that had started all this. It was beautiful and terrifying, a ring of crystalline structures surrounding a central platform, all pulsing with the same blue light as Ethan's anchor device. "This is it," he said. "The source of everything." The procedure was complex. I had to stand in the center of the temporal stabilizer while Ethan operated controls from his displaced time stream. We would essentially be synchronizing our consciousness across multiple temporal states simultaneously. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." He activated the device. Reality immediately became flexible. I could see multiple versions of the chamber, multiple versions of myself, multiple possible outcomes playing out simultaneously. My mind reeled, trying to process information that existed outside of linear causality. I saw Jessica in our kitchen, making coffee, but also Jessica crying over my grave, and Jessica growing old alone, and Jessica who had never met me at all. I saw my daughters as children, as teenagers, as adults, as people who had never been born. "Focus, Dave." Ethan's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "Don't try to understand it, just accept it." Through sheer willpower, I managed to operate the controls Ethan had shown me. Each adjustment sent waves of temporal energy through the fractured reality around us. Slowly, the multiple versions of everything began to collapse into single, stable images. The blue light grew brighter, more intense. "It's working," Ethan shouted. "But Dave, the temporal feedback is stronger than I calculated. I don't think your mind can." The world exploded into infinite possibility and then collapsed into singular, linear time. I woke up in a hospital bed in Seattle. Jessica was holding my hand, tears streaming down her face. "You've been unconscious for 3 days," she said. "They found you collapsed in your office. The doctors couldn't explain what happened." "Ethan," I whispered. "Dave, there's someone here. To see you." A man walked into the room, older, graying, but with familiar eyes. It was Ethan, aged to his proper 38 years. "Hey, old friend," he said. The temporal stabilizer had worked. Reality was restored, but the cost, My mind was different. I could remember the temporal experience, remember seeing multiple times, but trying to focus on those memories was like trying to hold water. Dr. Chen was right, exposure to none. Time changed you permanently, but I could live with it. My family was safe. Reality was stable. And somehow, miraculously, I had my best friend back. Ethan reintegrated into our lives gradually. He told people he'd been in witness protection for 16 years after witnessing a crime in college. It was a thin story, but people accepted it. He aged normally now, got a job teaching physics at the University of Washington, started dating a colleague. Dr. Sarah Kim built a normal life, but sometimes, late at night, I'd catch him staring at nothing with that distant look, and sometimes I'd catch glimpses of other timelines out of the corner of my eye. Echoes of the temporal displacement that would probably haunt both of us forever. The official records of the Fermilab project remain classified. Dr. Chen still teaches elementary school, and sometimes, when my daughters are playing in the backyard, I swear I can see the shadows of all the children. They might have been in all the timelines that could have existed. Some friendships transcend time itself. Some secrets are worth the price they demand. And sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible happens, and the people we lose find their way back to us. So what do you think, guys? Could temporal displacement really be possible? Have you ever experienced moments that felt like echoes from other timelines? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that challenge everything you think you know about reality.